Well, another slightly different short episode today as we move into 2024. A channel update for the new year with a few updates about what you're going to be seeing over the next year or so on the channel, both here on YouTube and on Twitch. And also some changes you can come to expect when FM25 comes around. So I've got a few decisions to make with the channel in the next year. So firstly, before we get into any of that, a happy new year to all of you. Thank you very much for your support in 2023, where, as I mentioned a bit in the festive special last week, we've had to take a few slightly different steps and a few little steps back in some places. But despite that, your support on the videos has been unwavering, particularly on the long-term stories. We had great fun with Distillery in FM23, and Southend looks like plenty of fun this year too. But moving forward through the rest of this year, I'm going to give you a flavour of what you can expect, both here and on Twitch, as well as a little bit of a podcast preview as well. So hopefully you're looking forward to all of that. But let's start with what you can expect over here, because the good news is from tomorrow we are back with the two long-term stories, and from this point forward there shouldn't really be many interruptions for the rest of the year. I'm a little bit worried that both seem to be moving and progressing a bit more quickly than we've seen in previous editions of the game, where we've had torture in the early years. So that might leave us some problems later in the year, or, as I see it, a few more opportunities to do the types of saves I like to. But you will continue to see a video from one of our long-term stories virtually every day at 3:30, work and other stuff permitting, but generally we've been able to keep to that for the most part. The second thing is about what's going to happen when either the head coach or the Southend save finishes, or both potentially. We have had this situation before. Of course, last year we went all the way to the finish with Distillery and didn't have to worry about the next one. But we did get a little Bristol City save after the head coach. But going back to FM22, when we finished our Hemel Hempstead save and the head coach, we did get to have a bit of fun in Scandinavia, both with Helsingborgs and with Viborg. So this year you can perhaps expect to see something pretty similar. We're going to go on a little adventure abroad if we do finish early. I've got a save in mind, but I'm not going to spoil it for you just yet, other than to say that it will be from outside of English football. I want to talk about some of the other stuff as well though, because there are going to be a few changes to this year, both initially and for FM25. One of the things I really enjoy doing, but don't often get to record quite as many as I would like, are sort of guides and run-throughs. They're things that I quite enjoy. We've seen probably the most successful video this year is the youth development one, the full step-by-step guide. We also did a few back in FM22 with the data hub when that came in that were really enjoyable. And looking ahead to FM25, where we're likely to see a new match engine and related features, I feel like that's something I'd like to do more of. So you will see occasional Sundays normally where those videos are replacing the stories, just to make sure that we've got a little bit of variety on the channel and something a little bit different to keep you entertained, which is always going to be important. But obviously moving forward in the year, I've got to talk about things away from Football Manager as well. Those of you know, partway through last year, I took on a few extra hours in employment because we're trying to get our first house. So for example, there are the odd days where we've missed out on either a stream in particular, but occasionally a video as well, just where it's been a little bit hectic. And that's always going to be the way, unfortunately. But as a result of that, there probably are going to be a few decisions to make when next year's game comes around, particularly if by then, hopefully, we have got a house. But also more importantly then, the working hours are higher, and will we be able to manage two long-term saves and two videos every day in the beta? As much as it's frustrating, probably not. It's usually one of my favourite hectic periods, getting loads of FM videos in. But I think I've decided for FM25 that we will go with one story to start off with, and then maybe try and fit around it with a few guides and a few other little bits as well. And maybe even a short-term save if the opportunity comes around. But just for this year, given the position we're hoping to be in, and of course it all depends where the move is and things like that, at that stage I don't want to put too much extra pressure on. So having those one-off videos that aren't time pressured and can be released at any day is a lot easier than trying to keep a second story up to date. So as a result, you'll probably notice that when FM25 is released. I'm also quite mindful of the fact that with the new match engine or animation engine this year, it is normally a sign that the initial game might be a bit more problematic. Going back to FM09, where the first 3D match engine came along, and other years where there's been massive changes, has generally been a bit tougher from the start, so not throwing into two stories might make it a little bit easier. It may also affect the Twitch schedule as well, but generally it actually should make it easier once we're in that position. So hopefully that's something we're not going to have to worry about later in the year. But Really enjoying doing both. I've loved the live streams even more this year. There's so many new faces with the regulars who are getting involved in the chat. And those of you who are there regularly know we get so distracted from the FM most of the time that we just end up talking about football and nonsense for an hour, which is always good fun to me. It obviously has been a slightly busier year because Luton have been in the Premier League, which has meant more videos on the podcast channel than we normally have, which may or may not be present next year. We haven't decided what we're going to do on that front yet. But it has meant that I've had to take a little step back here. Just a combination of house hunting, of having extra employed hours and doing extra work on the podcast. We've just had to slow things down a little bit here. So apologies for the odd day where we have been missing one. But generally speaking, it's all calming down a little bit now. And for the next 9 months, we should be able to settle in for a video pretty much every day from the head coach, Southend, or maybe even a new save a bit later on, depending on how they both go. We might have some hiccups to come yet. I certainly don't want to be getting too confident too early. But otherwise, the schedule shouldn't be too affected. But the big news really is for FM25. We're going to start with one long-term story next year, just to try and ease the workload due to the position I'm expecting to be in. The other news on that front, though, is that I'm hoping Cricket 24 is going to be ready to play soon, because when it initially came out, it was very underdeveloped. But now a lot of the licensing stuff is sorted and a lot of the big patches have come along as well. And a lot of people are saying it's a very good game. So hopefully we'll be able to give that a test on Twitch in the next couple of months and maybe give it a little series on YouTube too. And there have been a few little inklings from the woodwork that there might be a new snooker game this year. And if that comes along, you can certainly expect to see a bit on the channel. I think the only thing that we may see disappear from this channel is possibly the F1 Manager series, because while we did it on Twitch last year, it wasn't quite as enjoyable. And I've got to be honest, the game hadn't developed as much as the previous year, and it hadn't been able to patch it as quickly. So unfortunately, it looks like that series, despite the brilliant game they made in F1 22, it looks like F1 Manager 2023 was a little step back. So I'm not going to play a game for the sake of it if the enjoyment isn't there. Fingers crossed there'll be some other great games though. We'll have a little look at the sticker book in the summer for the Euros. We'll have loads of watch-alongs during that too over on Twitch. It's going to be a very fun year as always. Thank you to everyone who has supported the channel, who watches the videos, likes, comments, follows all the other social media, supports sponsors, all of that stuff. You all know how much of a difference it makes. A special thank you to the channel members, the patrons and the Twitch subscribers. You do make a massive difference. I never ask for people to pay their own money into things, but obviously you know it does make a difference. So thank you very much to you guys. And overall, I hope you all have a very good 2024. A happy new year to you and a happy year playing FM, hopefully. We'll be back tomorrow with usual service from the 2 long-term stories. We had our little guide yesterday, which you can find in the eye above if you missed it. And it's FA Cup weekend this time. We've got loads of watch-alongs on Twitch, so come and join us later in the week for those. But thank you as always for coming along. If you enjoyed it, chuck a little thumbs up on there. Subscribe to stay up to date with our daily videos from the long-term saves. And I'll see you back here tomorrow as we return to the head coach.